גלה כבוד מלכותך עלינו, גלה, גלה, גלה כבוד מלכותך עלינו, גלה, כבוד מלכותך עלינו, גלה, כבוד מלכותך עלינו, גלה כבוד מלכותך עלינו, גלה כבוד מלכותך Welcome. Good Yantif. It's Shavuos. I hope that many of you already know, and those who don't, now will get to meet Leah Goldman Miller, who is a newish Ner Shalom member and a Nitzanim parent and a really rather glorious singer. And so, if I have my way, you're going to be hearing that more. Leah Goldman Miller.
Thank you. Nice to meet you all. Slowly in person.
I love this holiday more every year. I do, and there's just something, I don't know, there's something about learning as ritual. There's something about opening up to revelation. There's something about, when Torah describes the moment of revelation around the mountain, there's thunder and there's lightning and there's trembling. One of the things the Torah says is that the people, kol ha'am ro'im et hakolot, the whole people saw the sounds. They saw the sounds. And there's a way in which that, I think, is an invitation for this holiday of revelation, this holiday where we remember that moment and we retell that moment. And when I say we remember, because tradition has it that we were all there. So we're not just remembering in a cultural sense, we're remembering in a visceral sense memory, neshama memory way. Um, that there's an invitation for us to use all of our senses and to mix them up, to be synesthetic in our learning, to let our eyes see the sounds and our ears see the colors and our fingertips feel the texts. All of this is available to us. An invitation to break out of our usual ways of learning and reading, which sometimes end up really constricting us. The way we are with text. I think about like a traditional Jewish posture when studying, right? Is this. You have the book in front of you and you're doing this. And this is actually this, what is sagittal, right? The sagittal movement can be narrowing, right? We're defining a narrow space. So an invitation even right now to take your body and move side to side in a little stretch, maybe a sideways lean, a looking up, a looking down, a looking outward, a looking inward. There's a tradition that on Shavuot at midnight, the heavens open for a moment, just like at Sinai. But I think we want to respond to the invitation to mix up the senses, to mix up the directions. Maybe something does open up for revelation to pour through, but maybe it's not up there. Maybe it's in one of these other planes, these lateral planes, the sagittal plane, the inner, outer plane. Maybe it's something in here that's going to open up. Maybe the revelation that pours through is not going to be revelation coming to us, but revelation pouring from us to each other, or pouring from us back into us. Sometimes I think we don't honor our wisdom enough. We think, oh, I don't have anything to say. I don't have anything to share. There's nothing that I know, but maybe it's true that we've got everything we need. The wisdom, the revelation is already in ourselves, in our bodies. It's been planted there by Shekhinah. It's been planted there by flow of revelation. And it's grown there, ready to pour forth to each other and into the spiral of revelation in this universe and back into our own hearts with greater confidence, with greater knowing. The knowing that, oh yes, this wisdom that's coming from me, this is real. This is not me saying stuff just to see what it sounds like. There's some piece of this that is prophetic. So welcome to the Tikkun Leyl Shavuot, and maybe tonight we can use all of our senses and use them in innovative ways, learn in new ways. As we're learning from our teachers tonight, ask the unusual questions, not always ask the expected questions too, but also the unexpected questions. Make our teachers have to think out of the box a little bit and see what new insight pours through them. Or maybe they will ask you the unexpected question and we'll see what insight pours through you. So I don't know how many of you have candles at the ready. Leah and I do, because we planned. So we're going to light candles and invite you to light candles as well. Maybe if you do have candles at the ready, maybe you can give us a wave and we can add you to the spotlight. Give a wave, give a little wave. Or maybe it is just us, just we who are Nair equipped. Oop, oop. Oh, yay. Okay. Hello, Pamela.
Hello.
Hello, Miriam. Welcome. Okay, so Let's light our candles, and then we can all bless together. It's the Asher Kitshanu b'mitzvotav etzivanu. It'll be the Lahadlik Ner Shel Yom Tov, the holiday lights. Hey there, Susan. Good to see you. So. Baruch atah Havaya Eloheinu Ruach Haolam Asher Kitshanu b'mitzvotav V'tzivanu Lehadlik ner shel Yom Tov. Taste that light. Taste that light. So, further invitation just into your innate knowingness. And I want to turn it over to Leah to say more or lead you more and lead us in this next song.
We can all take a collective breath together, and when we breathe out, try breathing out through an imaginary straw. Breathe in. One more. The song that I would love to share with you is one that was caught by Lindsay Scott, and it's called The Way, and the lyrics are now in the chat. Please join me as we continue. You don't have to know the way knows the way. You don't have to plan the way, trust the way, feel your way. The way knows, the way knows, the way knows the way. You don't have to know the way knows the way. You don't have to plan the way, trust the way, feel your way. The way knows, the way knows, the way knows the way. You don't have to know the way knows the way. You don't have to plan the way, trust the way, feel your way. The way knows, the way knows, the way knows the way. You don't have to know the way knows the way. You don't have to plan the way, trust the way, Feel your way, the way knows, the way knows, the way knows the way. One more time. You don't have to know the way. The way knows the way. You don't have to plan the way. Trust the way. Feel your way. The way knows. The way knows. The way knows the way.
I also learned that song this week at Taproot, coincidentally. So when Leah suggested it, it just was like, oh, yeah, okay, great. It's one for me. Here, let's see if we can squish up a little, just a little bit. The last song that we're going to do to move us into our readiness for Revelation is Rabbi Shefa's chant Gal Einai, and those words are now in the chat also. Gal Einai va'abita niflaot mitoratecha, which sounds like a mouthful, but the way she builds it is that we say one word, and then we say that word again, but with the next word, and then we say those again, but with the next words, and so it builds, and you get practice at it. But also she suggests, I think by doing that we can't just open our eyes to the miracles of Torah. It takes a little bit of work and warm up. One word at a time, we build our revelation muscle. And the chant is this chant is a way to get us, to launch us on that path of building our revelation muscle. Galenai ve'abita, Galenai ve'abita niflaot, Galenai ve'abita niflaot mitoratecha. Galenai, 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 oh Galenai. Galenai ve'abita, Galenai ve'abita niflaot, Galenai ve'abita niflaot mitoratecha. Galenai, 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 oh Galenai. Galenai ve'abita, Galenai ve'abita niflaot, Galenai ve'abita niflaot mitoratecha. Galenai, 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 oh Galenai. Galenai ve'abita, Galenai ve'abita niflaot, Galenai ve'abita niflaot mitoratecha. Galenai, 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 oh Galenai. Galenai ve'abita, Galenai ve'abita niflaot, Galenai ve'abita niflaot mitoratecha. הנפלאות מתורתך. גל עיניי, גל עיניי, גל עיניי, גל עיניי, או גל עיניי, או גל עיניי, או גל עיניי, גל עיניי, גל עיניי, גל May all of our senses be opened tonight. Thank you, Leah. What a treat. So we have Barbara. Are we starting right in, or is this a bio break? What would you like?
I think we could take a couple of quick stretches, and then I'd be happy to introduce you.
Wonderful. Thank you.
And we've got close to 50 people in the Zoom room.
Wonderful. Welcome, everyone.
Welcome, everyone. It is my great honor to introduce Rabbi Irwin Keller, who has served as Congregation Ner Shalom's spiritual leader since 2008. He's a founder and faculty member of the Taproot community, offering Jewish activists a path for deepening in Jewish practice. He's also an LGBTQI rights activist and authored Chicago's gay rights law, in force since 1989. He was a founder and for 21 years, a performer with the Kinsey Six, America's favorite Dragapella Beauty Shop Quartet, and has been ordained by the Aleph Alliance for Jewish Renewal in the lineage of Rabbi Zalman Schachter Shalomi. And you'll be thrilled to follow his blogs at irwinkeller.com. And I am going to turn this over to Rabbi Irwin.
Yeah, I'm here. Here's a little chant for us to start with, as if we haven't been chanting enough. The words here are Ahava v'rachamim chesed v'shalom. Arguably 4 synonyms for love. That was pointed out by a wonderful participant in the Taproot gathering this week, that these are not all separate things. These are all flavors of love. Ahava, which is a kind of romantic love. Rachamim, from the word rechem, which means womb, a kind of mother love. Chesed, which is a love toward each other, a care for the people around us, for the world around us. And shalom, peace, which is a kind of wholeness, a peace that is love writ large. And also writ internally. My own wholeness lends to a loving, peaceful world. And it goes like this. Ahava v'rachamim chesed v'shalom. Ahava v'rachamim chesed v'shalom, ahava v'rachamim, chesed v'shalom, ahava v'rachamim, chesed v'shalom, ahava v'rachamim, chesed v'shalom, ahava v'rachamim, chesed v'shalom. Let's do it a couple more times. And as we chant it, imagine yourself planting seeds of love all around you. Ahava v'rachamim, chesed v'shalom, ahava v'rachamim, chesed v'shalom. One more time. Ahava v'rachamim, chesed v'shalom. So this teaching I'd like to offer tonight is kind of an exploration that I'm in. It's not something that I have special expertise on, that I want to teach you. It's texts that I think might help us all. And may this study be for the sake of greater love, greater ahava, v'rachamim, v'chesed, v'shalom. I wanted to have a conversation about how do we hold conflict, not as kind of an exercise in how do we facilitate or how do we facilitate conversations or all of the many things that we have talked about over the last 8 months about how do we succeed in talking to each other. We've talked about some things and we have rarely actually exercised them. And I've seen the ways that we've been afraid to talk to each other because we don't know how to hold the conflict that we're often feeling with our loved ones, with our childhood friends, with our family of origin, with sometimes within marriages. We have, over this time, people have come to me and said, we can't talk about the conflict in Israel and Gaza because it's too hard for us to hear each other and to empathize with each other. And to me, it feels really important that we find the ways to sow the seeds of love in the conversations that we have, because what's happening now is happening now, and what's happening now, there will come a time that we're on the other side of what's happening now. We'll be in a what's happening then, hopefully in a more peaceful future, in a future that's participatory and cooperative and peaceful and inspiring to us. It's going to be a while to get there, but may it be so soon and in our day. But when we get to that point and we look back and we look around us, I don't want to see schisms that can no longer, chasms that can no longer be bridged. It matters to me that we find the ways to hold our differences now so that we can keep being community, keep being family in the future. So I wanted to bring a few texts from our tradition on how we might hold those tense relationships and the tense conversations, with an invitation for us to explore them and to chime in on what works, what doesn't work, what feels inviting, what feels like it's just too hard to mention. I gave a version of this teaching at the Judaism Unbound Tikkun, which was Saturday night. And, some people sort of loved some of these texts and what they had to say, and I'm too afraid to actually have the conversation with my housemates. And I understand that too. But maybe some of these texts can also give us a little bit of courage to hold love in these conversations. By the way, I just want to check that there's somebody in the Zoom team that has an eye on the door, because I'm seeing people show up. Okay. I don't want to make people wait too long. They should wait a little bit. I think the suspense is exciting. But you never know when the next gem is going to come out of my mouth. I don't want them to miss it. In this case, no gem came out. So I've brought a couple things from Torah. I've brought something from Talmud, and I've brought something from Chassidus, from Chassidut, from the teachings of Rebbe Nachman of Bratslav. I'm going to be looking at my own notes and the texts as well. I think, Cindy, if you can, there we go. Right there is a source sheet. You can click on that and you'll be able to see what I'm looking at. Because I'll be looking at it, I won't necessarily be able to see you all. So I won't be able to see hardly any of you. So if you would like to chime in, I want to invite you to not be shy. And I know that can be hard, but to just unmute and say, Reb Irwin, I have an idea, I have a thought about this, or I have an insight, and really just do it. And because we're going to create Torah together. And without your voices, it's not a creating of Torah. It's not a shared, emergent revelation like it could be. So really, I want to invite you into the bravery of unmuting and saying, I've got a thought about this. And in this conversation, we can actually be practicing some of what we're going to read in these texts. So I'd like to start with one that really probably does not require a whole lot of time. It's coming up in just a couple weeks in Torah, so you'll get a chance. If you come to synagogue, you might get a chance, or if you're a regular reader of Parashat HaShavua, you'll have a chance to dive deeper into it. And I've excerpted it, and it's, you get the idea really right off the bat. So it's the story of Korach, a very famous story about somebody who questions the structure and decision-making process, the hierarchy of the Israelites after the Exodus and in the Midbar, in the wilderness, questions it and creates a crisis in the community of the people who back Moshe, who back Moses, and the people who back Korach. And some terrible stuff happens. I'm going to tell you what that is. And you should also know that the Korach clan continues on. Even though the story has the ending that you're about to see, there are psalms that are psalms by the Korahites. You'll see when you read, if you read through the book of Psalms, some of the songs they wrote continue to be recited in Psalms. So be aware that it's a community, that this thing happens, this terrible thing happens that we're about to read, and somehow that lineage continues within our lineage. Anyway, so here we go. Now Korach, the son of Yitzhar, the son of Kehat, the son of Levi, betook himself, along with Datan and Aviram, the sons of Eliav, and On, son of Pelet, descendants of Reuven, to rise up against Moshe, together with 250 Israelites, chieftains of the community, chosen in the assembly, leaders of repute, men of repute. They joined forces against Moshe and Aharon and said to them, "You have gone too far. For all the community are holy, all of them, and Havaya, Adonai, is in their midst. Why then do you raise yourselves above Adonai's congregation?" So, a questioning of why Moshe and Aharon get to lead, why they get to make the decisions on behalf of the community. These things that Korach is saying, that the entire community is holy, well, we get that in the book of Leviticus. God says, "Kadoshim tihiyu ki kadosh anochi," I don't remember the exact words, "Ki kadosh ani." You shall be holy. You shall be a mamlechet kohanim. You shall be a kingdom of priests. God says this to us. This is not Korach's opinion. This is something that God said directly to us. And God said, "Vasuli mikdash v'shachanti b'tocham." God said, "Make me a mishkan, make me a holy dwelling place, and I shall dwell among them." Among them, meaning among the children of Israel. So that's there too. We did it. And now we're already now having conversations with God in the Mishkan. God is now dwelling among us in the Midbar. So Korach is not saying something that is not already part of the theology and self-concept of the Israelites in the desert, but is saying, if it's so that Havaya, that Adonai is dwelling among us, and if it's so that we are all holy, that we are a kingdom of priests, what is it that gives you the right? So I think for some of us, that is not an unreasonable question. Now, we don't know a whole lot about the tone with which it was asked. We do know, right, that it's all these guys and 250 of their best friends are showing up. That's a lot of people for Moshe and Aharon to suddenly find outside their tent saying, "Excuse me, we need to talk about your right to lead." So we don't know what the flavor of this is. Is it something that Moshe knew was coming, or is it a surprise? We don't know the flavor of it, but we know the response. Moshe fell on his face, then he spoke to Korach and all those people, saying, "Come morning, Adonai will make known who is God's and who is holy, by drawing near the ones whom God wants near. So do this, you, Korach, and all your people, take fire pans," right? That's the way we made offerings. "Take fire pans, and tomorrow put fire in them and lay incense on them before Adonai. Then the one whom Adonai chooses shall be the Holy One. And just to rub it in, you have gone too far, sons of..." Is somebody wanting to say something? I hear somebody unmuted. If you're unmuted, please speak up. Okay. So Moshe says,
Well,
God will prove it.
I'll unmute for a minute if that other voice
Yeah.
wants.
Rita, please.
Okay. So just briefly, response already. This uprising in the tribe feels very democratic. Like everybody has the right to express themselves, kind of like our First Amendment. I wanted to say that. And also, there's this kind of thin line. If God dwells among us, that could mean that God is equal to us, that we are equal to God, which actually feels almost blasphemous when I say that, right? But so that's the thing I wanted to say so far about this uprising within the tribe. I don't know anything at all about Orthodoxy, but it seems to me the reason there are so many of these rabbi patriarchs and all these different, what's the word, sects, sects within Orthodoxy, and with all these followers, all these like clumps of,
Yeah, yeah.
that's all. Like,
Rabbinic courts with followers, yeah, with students.
anyway,
Some
yeah.
cult of personality happening there. Like there's a cult of personality happening, maybe, in those situations, and maybe Korach is like this Moses cult of personality is not okay. To have all of the authority vested in one person when we've got nearly 1 million people here in our encampment. Um, and yeah, I think that sort of at least on the surface of the of the challenge, right? That the populist nature of it, the seeming democratic nature of it, is very appealing to us. Torah, I mean, you're about to see, Torah does not like what Korach is doing, although we have a tendency to kind of like it. Yeah, like why? What's our process here? Can we have a process discussion?
Hey, Irwin, this is
Yeah.
Stephanie.
Hey,
What
Stephanie.
hi, what precipitated this outrage from Korah?
We don't know. We don't know. It's out of the blue in Torah. It doesn't come. Uh, I don't think. Oh, I could be so wrong on that. But as far as I recall, it's kind of out of the blue. It's interestingly, we're gonna look at a Talmud thing that's also about a big conflict, and we don't actually know what it's about.
Okay.
So in some ways, it seems like maybe Torah wants us to think more about the conflict than about the actual governance of the people. I don't know. But this is Numbers chapter 16. If somebody feels like jumping into their Tanakh and taking a look and seeing what happens at the end of Numbers 15 and then pipe up, that would be great. So anyway, Moshe sort of, throws down the gauntlet and says, okay, we're going to have a duel. I mean, literally like throwing down the gauntlet. We're going to have a duel. Me against all of you, and God will decide. And there's more up and back and stuff like this. And God wants to destroy everybody. And Moses, as usual, is like, no, don't destroy everybody. It's just Korach and those people. Just destroy them if you need to destroy somebody. And then they finally get to the day where they light their fire pans. And what happens? But I'm going to the bottom of page 1. Scarcely had Moshe finished speaking when the ground under them, that is, under Korach and those people, burst asunder, and the earth opened its mouth and swallowed them up with their households, and all Korach's people and all their possessions. They went down alive into Sheol. Sheol is the biblical word for the underworld, with all that belonged to them. The earth closed over them, and they vanished from the midst of the congregation. All Israel around them fled at their shrieks, for they said the earth might swallow us. And a fire went forth from Adonai and consumed the 250 contestants offering the incense. There you go. There's a model for management of conflict within the community. Right? So this is a memorable moment in Torah, zero-sum game. The people that disagree with you, just let the earth swallow them up and let them be burned in a fire. And that is how an uprising is quelled. So I think we can all agree that we do not hold this as a model of best practices in managing conflict within community. But I have to say that over these months, I have often felt something a little bit like that. Even if you disagree with me a little bit, you're my enemy. If you disagree with me even on a subtlety, you're my enemy. And one of us has to win. And it's going to be me.
Oh gosh,
So
I hate. Sorry.
this is a model of there is a winner and then a complete silencing and exclusion of the loser. And I'm noticing a tendency towards the obviously not a sinkhole, but a way in which we're not actually talking to each other. There's a challenge, and then there's a suppression of the challenge in some way. Rita.
Oh, yeah, I don't want to talk too much, just get the hook, people, if I'm blabbing too much, but I wanted to play devil's advocate for a second and say that the fact that the earth opened up, people say nature bats last, was kind of an equalizer. Like everybody fell into the pit. Well, maybe not everybody, but it was like I said, an equalizer. So, I mean, of course, I entirely agree that the dialogues we're trying to have today are very incendiary. For me, still impossible, actually.
Yeah. Yeah.
Yeah, the conflict is like raging, but
Yeah.
there's something kind of cool about Mother Earth solving the problem by just opening up and sucking the humanoids in, right?
I mean, you could make maybe some metaphorical argument about what's happened, that the Earth knows what needs to happen. And I'm not certain how to salvage this story as a model of community conflict resolution. I'm holding it up as a tendency that we as humans have that I think is important to resist. And, we're experienced Torah readers, and what we do when we read Torah is we turn it over and over, and we find the ways in which it's objectionable, and also the ways in which it might mean something different entirely. So I'm not suggesting that there aren't other ways to read Korach, but that's the purpose for which I'm bringing it. Hello, Gesher.
I just want to share a teaching of a 13-year-old boy who studied for Bar Mitzvah. Gary Wiener's son, Ben, had this portion, and he couldn't live with this way. So his conclusion was that God didn't kill Korach's people. God planted them as seeds so they would have a chance to grow again into the world in a different form. So I love that teaching.
Kane, that sounds beautiful. Thank you, Gesher, and thank you, Ben Wiener. Leah.
It occurs to me that if this could be something that happens when you allow yourself to be totally engulfed in falsehoods and a way of living that is not considerate of others, not pro life in general, and that if you get too close to people who are strongly passionate about something that is not a way you want to live, you can get swallowed up by it. You can burn up with it. You can completely get subsumed by it as if it were a physical burning up. So I think that as we think about how difficult it is now to speak with those with whom we don't agree or who don't agree with us, and we want to tread very lightly, that there is a fear that if you get too close to something that is passionately persuasive, you can get swallowed up. You can burn up.
Yeah. Beautiful. Thank you. That's really important. What are the ways in which we set ourselves up to be swallowed up in our viewpoint, to be swallowed up in, or to be burned by the heat that we're carrying. Thank you, Leah. And again, we don't, this is a story. It's an fable. It's an allegory. We can, and that's an important thing. We don't know what was the heat that Korach and those people were carrying, and what was the way in which they were already swallowed up by their anger at the leadership. We don't know. So thank you for that. I want to just point to two other things in Torah, in the Chumash, in the 5 books of Moses, just so I don't leave you with this idea that Torah does not believe in peaceful and loving reconciliation. I just want to point out, and I think Basha might be telling these stories later on in her session, or Gesher might be, I'm not certain, but just to mention them, that we see in the portion called Chayei Sarah, we see that when Abraham dies, that Isaac and Ishmael are together burying him. And, there's so much unfairness in that story, the way that Isaac gets privileged. And even just before Abraham's death, we see Abraham bequeathing everything to Isaac. Nonetheless, he dies, and there are the two of them next to each other. I mean, we know elsewhere that Ishmael is going to become a great nation, etc. But on the surface of the plot, there's great unfairness here. And we also see the brothers shoulder to shoulder burying their father, which also means, with the speed with which burial would have happened, that Ishmael was already there. It wasn't like someone had to go look for Ishmael. Ishmael was there while Abraham was dying. Which suggests to me that even though there was animosity among the parents, Isaac and Ishmael didn't necessarily adopt that animosity as their own. They, in some way, let go of the lineage of animosity, of hatred, of jealousy, of inequality among the parents. I don't know if they did or not, but we see them in a moment that feels peaceful and feels loving. I also want to point to in Vayishlach, a few weeks later in Torah, we get Jacob reuniting with Esau. And there is much trepidation, and Esau is sending presents and just doing everything he can to soften up Esau. And then when they see each other, and Jacob is afraid that Esau is just going to kill him, instead they fall on each other's shoulders and they kiss and they cry. And it's a profound moment in Torah. And if you happen to have the source sheet open, I've included a photograph of how the word "they kissed each other," Vayishakehu, how it looks in Torah, because there's a dot over each letter. It's a scribal tradition in Torah, and nobody knows exactly why. I mean, for me, they're like light bulbs, right? They're like a ballyhoo on a marquee, on a theater marquee. Look here, look here, look here, look here, look here. And there's a way in which Torah is saying this kiss is important to notice. The mutuality of this kiss is important to notice, even though we know that Jacob cheated Esau. We know that then Jacob tried to appease Esau. He tried to buy peace. Well, at least for this moment, he achieved it. Like, there's no shame in buying some peace. Here, let me give you all these gifts. Let me give you some land. There's no shame in that. So Torah draws our attention, of all the words in the scroll, Torah draws our attention here so that we notice this moment of reconciliation. I don't know exactly what to do with it, and I don't know, it doesn't suggest a particular process, but Torah believes it can happen. They don't become best friends. They don't move in together. They keep their distance after that. They decide, okay, you take this land, I'll take that land, or whatever. But they find the way that they can coexist. They kiss, they cry, they grieve for the years that they lost. They grieve for the pain that they experienced over decades. They cry together, they kiss, and then they figure out how they can move forward. Given the wound, given the scar between them, how they can continue to move forward together. Reb Judith, are you
No, I'm just saying
waiting?
Gesher has had something to say.
Oh, I can't see you all, so you must interrupt me. Gesher.
Interrupt him.
Where are you, Gesher? Can't hear you.
Yeah, sure, you have to unmute.
So I love that take on it. I read the story the same way. I always have read the story the same way. But just today, I read a commentary that said that same word also has the connotation of biting. And so So the paradoxes are built into the language, right? And that's part of the challenge of the whole thing, is that it doesn't mean this, it means this and that. And so the story is wonderful the way you told it and the way I've always believed it. And today I was shocked to read, oh yeah, but the word could, from the Talmudic text, it said, yeah, it could also mean biting. So
There is there is midrash that says that, but Torah says kiss. Torah is clear. It's
oh,
nashak with a kuf. Now the midrash says, yeah, but it's just like nashach with a kaf, which
oh,
is bite. You know, we have this whole layer of like old Proto-Semitic words that start with nash that have to do with things that happen here around the muzzle, right? So you also get linshof to exhale, linshom to breathe in. Um, I think there are a couple of others as well, but the things that we do right in this area, nash, which sounds actually a lot like gnashing your teeth,
I,
English.
oh, it, ooh.
Okay, quick, because I want Basha also had unmuted, and I want to give Basha a chance.
I'm sorry. Yeah. Just briefly then. Um, uh, both, yeah, I was going to say this oral thing. Kissing and biting are really neighbors in terms of the anatomy. Also wondered if it was related to the word nosh, which probably isn't.
It's not, but I love, gnashing your teeth, nasherai, all of that. That's good modern midrash making. They noshed on each other. They were so happy to see each other. You're so delicious. That's something that parents do with babies when they kiss them. When they kiss them, right? I'm going to eat you up. But Gesher, I think even though Torah is clear which one, some say that's why the dots are there, because not to draw our attention to the kiss, but to cast doubt on the kiss. Um, and Esau is seen as the progenitor of the Romans and then later of the Christians. And so some of that midrash comes at a time when people are trying to read their present day experience with the Roman overlords through the stories. So they're not feeling so kissy with the Roman emperor. And that gives rise to midrashim like that. But I think it's a great question, and you know, you could also hold it that when we talk about our models of resolution, right, in the same way that they kiss each other and then they move apart, right? That even in our kisses of resolution, it doesn't mean that we suddenly love everything about each other. There's still a little bit of bite in it, and that's okay. There's bite inherent in the kiss. Basha, and then I'm going to move on to Talmud.
Yeah, no, thank you. I didn't even know how you could tell I had unmuted. I just wanted to say that this is one of Rabbi Michael of blessed memory's favorite passages, that the two brothers embraced and kissed after this huge estrangement. And yeah, I think it's fine if there's a little bite in the kiss, but the main thing is that he was scared to death that his brother would have revenge on him. And well, he might, because he had stolen his birthright. And what happens, though, is that they kiss, and it's a really poignant tearjerker moment, actually, in the Torah.
Yeah, yeah. The story on its face only works if it's a kiss, right? If it's a bite, then why did we have all that lead up?
Right.
And I wanted to say there's another, it reminds me of the other, what I find the most poignant moment in all of Torah is the reconciliation of Joseph and his brothers. That is, to me, one of the most, I cry every time I read that.
Yeah, beautiful. I didn't include that here, but yes, that's another example. And that's one where, like, the other things that happen there are a reshuffling of the power relationship. As a child, his brothers have power over him, and the resolution when he finally has power over his brothers. That's also something to look at. How does power and powerlessness affect our ability to reconcile?
Yeah, great.
Okay, I'm going to move on to the Eylu ve'Eylu, and we can and we'll explore it together. So this is a bit from the Babylonian Talmud, from the tractate called Eruvin, which is a tractate dealing with the Eruv, which is the creating a kind of fence around a neighborhood so that it all becomes private space so that you can carry on Shabbat. So it's a tractate that's kind of about public versus private and creating sort of a community-wide consensus on sort of the geography and boundaries of the community. I mentioned that because my friend and colleague, Rabbi Lex Rofberg, mentioned that the other night when I was teaching this. He was like, I love that story. I've loved this story forever. And it's interesting to me that it sits in the tractate that's about creating what are the boundaries of community. So that's his chiddush, his insight, and I just want to put that out there. So here we go. Amar Rabbi Abba, Amar Shmuel, Shalosh Shanim Nechleku Beit Shammai Uveit Hillel, Halalu Omrim Halacha Kamotenu, Halalu Omrim Halacha Kamotenu, Yatz'a Bat Kol Va'amra Eylu ve'Eylu Divrei Elohim Chayim Hen, Eylu ve'Eylu Divrei Elohim Chayim Hen, Ve'halacha Keveit Hillel. So it goes like this. Rabbi Abba stated in the name of Rabbi Shmuel, for 3 years there was a dispute between the house of the students of Shammai and the students of Hillel. You remember Shammai and Hillel, they're always posed. They sit in Talmud as a kind of binary, with Hillel over on the Chesed side and Shammai over on the Gevurah side. Shammai is about the letter of the law, and Hillel is about applying the law in generous ways. Okay. For 3 years, the followers of Shammai and the followers of Hillel were arguing about a particular legal problem. And the story doesn't tell us what the legal problem is. Talmud doesn't care what the problem is. Talmud's about the process here. So for 3 years, there was a dispute between Beit Shammai and Beit Hillel, the former Beit Shammai asserting the halacha, the law, is in agreement with our view. But the Beit Shammai contending, no, the halacha is in agreement with our view. Then a bat kol, which I taught about last year in our sessions on prophecy, a divine voice, right? Because in the time of Talmud, the belief was that there was no more direct prophecy through prophets, but occasionally this disembodied female voice would emerge from the ether carrying the divine word. It's called a bat kol, the daughter of a voice. And the bat kol appears numerous times all over Talmud, sometimes listened to, sometimes ignored, sometimes pointedly ignored. In this case, the bat kol issues and announces, Eylu ve'Eylu divrei Elohim chayim hein. Both these and these are the words of the living God. Both these and these are the words of the living God. I want to pause there for a moment. Eylu ve'Eylu, both these and these. So you're in a conflict. What is it that can enable you to see the holiness in what the other person is saying? Presuming, and especially, because you don't agree with them. What is that process like for us? Because maybe it's not about exactly seeing the divinity in your words. Maybe it's more seeing the humanity in your words, or the divine humanity in your words. Like, what are the longings and the fears and the instincts and reflexes and traumas and joys that are underlying these words that you're saying? I hear you saying these words. I really think the words you're saying are wrong. And there is a humanity coming through your words, or a divinity coming through your words that I share also. You're saying this because you're afraid for your safety and the safety of our people. Yeah, you know what? I'm afraid for my safety too. and I'm afraid for the safety of our people. And it brings me to a different position. But I can identify with you. I can identify with what is bringing you to your position, to a position that I don't agree with, but I see you, I hear you, I feel what's underneath it. What are the deep midot, the deep elements, the deep emotional and spiritual elements underneath what you're saying? Eylu ve'elu divrei Elohim chaim. Both this side of the conflict and this side of the conflict, these are both the words of the living words of God, the living words of the divine, Talmud says. But Talmud doesn't stop there. It says, and the halacha is in agreement with the rulings of Beit Hillel. Because sometimes it's not enough to just, you can't just say, well, it's all divine, and so everybody's right. Because you sometimes have to make a decision. If you're in disagreement about something important, like there has to be some path forward. And it's a path forward that probably someone's not going to be happy about. So Talmud then asks itself the obvious question. It says, since, however, both are the words of the living God, what was it that entitled Beit Hillel to have the halacha fixed in agreement with their rulings? And then Talmud answers the question, because they were kindly and modest. They studied their own rulings and those of their opposition, those of Beit Shammai, and they were even so humble as to mention the actions or deliberations of Beit Shammai before their own. So something about humility. Talmud is saying there's something about humility that if you have two viewpoints on a scale, your humility maybe gets added to your viewpoint in the weighting on the scale. And maybe your willingness to really hold the argument of the other side as something of value also adds weight to your view. And then they give an example of a time that the school of Shammai and the school of Beit Hillel were all visiting a particular rabbi, Rabbi something Ben Achonit. What's his name? Not that it matters, but they give his name. Rabbi Yochanan Ben Achonit. They visited him during Sukkot. They were ushpizin, they were honored guests in his home. And Rabbi Yochanan Ben Achonit is obviously of modest means because he only has this little deck outside his window. And he builds a sukkah on the deck, but there isn't room for him to put his table and his own body in under the sukkah. And we have a mitzvah to dwell in the sukkah, to eat in the sukkah. And here he is at the table. The table is in the sukkah. Rabbi Yochanan Ben Achonit's legs under the table are in the sukkah, but the bulk of his body is in the house. And the students of Rabbi Shammai visiting him say, oh, you're not fulfilling the mitzvah. And if this is what you have always done, you have never fulfilled the mitzvah. And Talmud is shocked at the callousness of that, at the willingness of the school of Shammai to make a ruling that tells someone that their good faith efforts, that their good intentions and their good faith efforts don't count for anything. And that's why, and this is given as an example of why the school of Hillel, even in that situation, wins, that no, substantial compliance and good intentions do count. And we're not going to make a ruling that disenfranchises people, that tells people that their experience is meaningless. We need to hold people's experience and their kavanot, their intentions, with kindness and with respect. I think that's what's being given over in this sugya, in this passage of Talmud. That's why Rabbi Hillel wins, not because they have better legal reasoning, but because they bring a kind of inherent respect and humility and kindness to the conversation. So I might argue that one thing we might try holding as a practice in these hard conversations is taking the position of, I see the holiness in what's coming through you. I see what your intention is here, and I hold it with honor, even though I think there is a kinder outcome. There is a kinder path, and the kinder path looks like this. Now, in real life, I have no idea how easy that is, how difficult that is. We all have our families and our friends and our tensions and all of this. But what are we able to model, even if we try it and it doesn't work well? I don't know that this is a model for persuading someone, and I'm not proposing that it's a model for persuading, but it might be a model for sharing and for listening, even if then you step away from the conversation and you each still have your own view. You have engaged in something a little bit holier, a little bit deeper, and you've modeled it for the other party as well. You have modeled what it's like to listen and to validate the honest way you came about having the opinion you have. And that's something that I have been feeling missing since October 7th. The requirement that we take a side in a way that invalidates the experience of the other side. And this practice is one that's like, we can see each other's experience. We can still disagree about solutions, about paths forward, about policy. We can disagree about policy, but we can hold that I hear where you're coming from. I hear it. I feel it. I feel it with you. Okay. Dibarti. I want to move now 1700 years forward to Rabbi Nachman of Bratslav, to a very beautiful teaching that he gives that I think can be useful to us as a practice. Again, not always easy, but maybe valuable to us in relationship and valuable to us as individuals. And I've included just a small excerpt from it on page 3 as the last text. It's from a teaching, a large teaching he gave over that is popularly called the Azamra teaching, from the line in Psalms, Azamra le'Elohai be'odi, that I sing out to Adonai with odi, with my being, with my... There are different ways to translate it, and Rabbi Nachman gives this teaching over in a way that he builds a meaning for be'odi that is with the bits that remain to me, the bits that continue to exist in me. And I'm going to explain to you what he means, starting back at kind of the beginning. He says, da, not yes in Russian, but know this in Hebrew. Da, although he probably enjoyed the play on words. Da, ki tzarich ladu, because he wasn't really a Hebrew speaker in any event. He was a Yiddish speaker, and sometimes to understand Rabbi Nachman, you have to just translate it word for word into Yiddish to figure out what he's saying because of his word order. Da, ki tzarich ladun et kol adam lechav zechut. Know this, that you need to judge everyone on the side of merit. So he's invoking, again, the image of scales, and there's this side, the side of fault and the side of merit. And you have to judge, he says, judge everyone on the side of merit. In other words, we would say, give everyone the benefit of the doubt. Presume the best about each other. He says, tzarich ladun kol adam lechav zechut. You've got to judge everybody on the side of merit. Afilu mi shehu rasha gamur. Even the person who is entirely wicked. That's his language. I think I softened it in my translation. Even if you perceive them as a totally wicked person. But in his world, right, wickedness is a non-problematic category, let's say, in Nachman's world. Even somebody who is entirely wicked, tzarich lechapes v'limtzo bo eze me'at tov. You have to look deeper and find in that person one little bit of good. One little bit of good. Sheba'oto ha'ma'at eino rasha. That in that little bit, in that little point, in that mote of being, there is no wickedness. Somewhere in this person, there's a spot where there's no wickedness. Va'al yedei zeh she'motzei bo ma'at tov. And by finding that spot, v'dan oto lechav zechut, and by judging the person on the side of merit, you elevate the person really to the side of merit. And you can return this person in tshuva. You can return this person to goodness. So there's a little more here to say, but I just want you to get that there's this process, right? There's this practice of particularly the people that bug the heck out of you, the ones that are a problem for you, the ones that capture your attention, the ones that you wake up thinking about because they're a problem for you. Here's a practice. Imagine the good point in them, because whoever that person is, it is not possible, as he says in the next paragraph, no matter how wicked you perceive them to be, it is not possible that they do not possess even a little bit of good. It is not possible that through their life they never once did some mitzvah or some good deed. So you find that, you imagine it in, and you find it, you might remember it from your experience with them. He even goes as far as to say, it also doesn't have to be like a purely good deed. It can have a bunch of klipa, like it could have been mixed motive. It could have some dross attached to it. It doesn't have to be like the person is only worth this consideration if there is some shining light. Other Rebbes talk about a point of light. Reb Judith teaches this often about the point of light. The Sfat Emet talks about the point of light. Nachman doesn't say a point of light. It doesn't have to be light. It doesn't have to be so light. It can be kind of veiled. It doesn't matter. But it's there. How can it not be there? And when you see it, then you start judging the person less harshly, right? You're starting to judge them on the side of merit, on the side of zechut. And then he makes this sort of literal quantum leap, right? By observing, you're affecting. By observing the person in that way, you're actually moving them, in fact, to the side of zechut, so that tshuva becomes possible for them. Change, transformation maybe becomes possible for them. So, how do we feel when we're around someone that we know doesn't like us? We know it. We know it. We stiffen up. We entrench in our position. We feel threatened. We entrench in the conversation. But if we get a sense that actually they're seeing the ma'at tov, the little bit of good, some little bit of good in us, we feel it and it affects us, and we soften in response. We soften, and that person might see us as a little bit better than they had seen us before, and maybe we understand ourselves to be a little bit different than we had been seeing ourselves at the beginning of this encounter. Maybe in the encounter we saw ourselves the way the other person saw us, and we were stiffening into our position. And we were embodying it and enacting it in a way that was not necessary, in a way that we felt pushed into because of how we were seen. This is something I experience all the time, right? Like with the people that see me as the old white man, I start getting kind of old white manish, right? The people that see me as like the radical queer, I start getting radical queerish. the way in which we are affected by how we are seen in this quantum way. So Rabbi Nachman understands this and says, look for the good points in others. It'll soften how you see this person, and it'll actually affect them as well and make it possible for some kind of tshuva to happen. And he says that that person can return in tshuva, but really, maybe we can come back together in tshuva. We can return to each other in some way. I didn't include it here, but to bring it back to the azamra, to the I will make music. So he sees these points. He asks us then to practice this on ourselves too, that you need to also do this with yourself, because it's really, for a lot of us, for him in particular, it's sometimes difficult to see the good in yourself. And he says, find that ma'at tov, find that point. He uses the same language, because how can it be possible that you, my friend, have never done something good? And the good that you did could have been mixed motives. It could have been you were forced to do it, but you did it. So hold that up. Put that on the side of zechut. And then he gives a harder instruction, which is once you've done that, do it again. Find another good point, right? Which is a hard instruction, because sometimes if somebody says, think of something good about yourself, you've already got the rehearsed story for that. So you recite the rehearsed story. Well, I did blah, blah, blah. I helped my mother with, you've got the story. But then when someone says, okay, now another one, please. So he instructs you to go back and dip again and find another one. Go back and find another. To find another. And he describes these points, this ma'at tov as points, as actual nikudot, as dots of music. He describes them as notes of music. And then they come together. I don't know if he's visualizing, if he's actually visual, because he was kind of synesthetic. Was he visualizing notes on a page in a Western notation system, musical notation system? I don't know. But he certainly is seeing these points, he's hearing these points as notes of music. So when you accumulate these points, these good points that remain in you, what remains, the good that remains in you, the ode, the remainder in you, they make their own music. Azamra lelohaya, and I'm able to sing to God be'odi, with the remainders, with these remaining points in me, these points of goodness that remain in me. This uplift that happens, this music that happens when you find those points of good in yourself, but also when you find them in others. The teaching goes on to describe the role of the shaliach tzibur, the chazan in the synagogue, who takes this room of people, some of whom are beloved and some of whom are dreaded, and he starts finding the points of goodness, and they all create the melody with which the shaliach tzibur, the chazan, the prayer leader, the Baal Tefillah, create the melody that the Baal Tefillah offers up in prayer before the congregation. That the shaliach tzibur is not the source of the melody, but is a conduit, is a musical instrument. And it's these points, these good points from the congregation that pour through. That the shaliach tzibur, which literally means the representative of the congregation, the word tzibur also means a weaving together. So the shaliach tzibur is the person who weaves together the melodies, the notes of all of these people. So that's where Rabbi Nachman continues to go. But Rabbi Nachman is the kitzur. In short, Rabbi Nachman is saying that when you look for the good in the person that is working your every nerve, or the person that you're afraid to talk to, or the person that upsets you, it effectuates a change for you and for them. And through that process, there's a new music that can arise to the ears of the divine. So I want to kind of give us just a few minutes for feedback or ideas or whatever. These are not facilitation techniques. These are practices that might be personal practices. You wouldn't get together with the other person and say, I feel so differently about you. I like you so much more now that I've imagined that there's something good about you. Right? That's not going to, but as a practice, how that might affect how we hold each other through disagreement. Desmond, my friend,
Yeah,
please.
thank you. Thank you. Yeah. I'm just wondering how the concept of trauma, which I don't think was necessarily understood at that time, and I'm talking about the Gabor Mate understanding of trauma and how it's internalized and how when it's reactivated, it's uncontrollable. And I think possibly one pathway to radical empathy, which is really understanding the other person, feeling what the other person's feeling, is to understand that certain things have just pushed on their trauma or pushed on their abscess. If I pushed on your abscess and you pushed on my abscess, we're not going to have an argument about whose abscess is hurting more. And I sense that a lot right now, depending on where we come from, where we've been, family of origin, blah, blah. And to the extent that we understand that we all have an abscess and we just have to be patient and have time to heal it. And if we value the relationship, we'll just be patient around it because it's not a competition. So I just bring that up. I think Gabor Mate, as you know who he is, he's made a huge impact into this idea of trauma and the internalization and the recrudescence of it. Thank you.
Thank you, Desmond. Maybe we have time for one more comment. I realize I've run over time.
Hi,
Hi there,
Irwin.
Rob.
Yes, I've come up with the term before, but I'm reminded of it now. We are love bridges. That's it.
Ken Hiratson, may it be so. May it be so. That was so terse that if somebody else has something they'd like to speak in, you could do it. Basha?
Well, I just wanted to say that this teaching is very beautiful. Thank you so much. And I am practicing this with my children, with my daughter and son-in-law, not very far away, not the enemy from far, but even close by, to see the good bits and to trust that in them to grow. And anything else doesn't work really. So.
Thank you, Basha. Okay, I'm gonna close. Rita, do you wanna one final word? You're muted.
Yeah, I'll be really terse also. Yeah, the enemy is not enemy. The problem is not always far away and very different from me. Might be, as Basha just said, within the family, but my worst enemy is the enemies within me. And your beautiful teaching has helped me reconcile with myself, which could be at the core of loving somebody else.
Thank you. You know what I'll do is after we break, I will put a link in the chat to the full Azamra teaching where you can read through it beginning to end, including the parts about finding the good points in yourself. They're very beautiful, and you'll get a sense of Rebbe Nachman's style as well by doing that. So may this evening be a healing for our hardened hearts and our broken hearts. May we find through the revelations of the evening ways that we can blossom in love and in peace and in partnership and in the creation of a future that is so much gentler and kinder than the present that we're experiencing right now.
Amen.
So Barbara, back to you or right to Hannah?